There's a video going around right now that's only a few seconds long. In it, a young woman is walking quickly down a street, head slightly lowered, and then, for just a second, she lifts one hand and covers the middle of her face, not adjusting her hair, not blocking the sun, just covering it, long enough for someone nearby to catch it on camera and post it. That clip has already been clipped, captioned, and reposted thousands of times across social media. And almost every caption attached to it says some version of the same thing: she's hiding her face. The woman in that video is Lalisa, one of the most famous performers on the planet. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how a few seconds of someone walking down a street turned into one of the biggest celebrity discourse cycles of the summer. Stick with me, because later in this video, there's a detail about the timing of all this that almost nobody is talking about. And it might be the most important part of the entire story. Part 1. Setup. Let's back up, because if you don't follow K-pop closely, here's what you need to know first. Lisa, full name Lalisa Manoban, also credited in some places as Lalisa Manoban, is a member of Blackpink, one of the best-selling girl groups in modern music history. Born and raised in Thailand, she moved to South Korea as a young teenager to begin years of training before she ever debuted. Since then, she's become one of the most recognized entertainers alive, modeling for major luxury fashion houses, headlining sold-out stadium tours across multiple continents, and building a solo career on top of her group work that regularly lands at the top of global charts. Here's the scale we're talking about. Blackpink isn't just a popular group in Korea. It's arguably one of the most watched music acts on the planet, with a fan base, called Blinks, spread across nearly every country you can think of. When something happens to any member of that group, it isn't a small regional story. It's a global one, discussed in a dozen languages within the same hour. And that level of fame comes with a trade-off most of us never have to think about. Every outfit gets photographed from every angle. Every haircut gets a comment section. Every red carpet appearance gets zoomed in on, screenshotted, and compared to 5 other photos from 5 other years, often within minutes of the original photo going up. So when I tell you that Lisa has had an unusually intense few weeks of online scrutiny, that's not a small thing to say. This is someone who has spent over a decade in front of cameras. Someone who is, by any measure, used to being looked at. And even for her, this particular summer has been different. It's also worth naming something about why stories like this one spread the way they do. When someone reaches a level of fame like Lisa's, millions of people feel like they know her, even though almost none of them actually do. Psychologists sometimes call this a parasocial relationship, a one-sided sense of closeness that fans build with a public figure through years of watching interviews, performances, and social media posts. That closeness is part of what makes fandom so passionate and so loyal. But it also means that when something seems off, a different hairstyle, a different angle, a different facial expression, it can feel, to a fan, less like noticing a stranger's photo, and more like noticing something change about someone they care about. That emotional investment is exactly why a story like this one doesn't just get noticed. It gets debated, defended, and argued over for weeks. To understand why, we actually need to rewind about a month, because this story didn't start with the Paris video at all. It started with a World Cup. Part 2, the viral moment. But before we rewind that far, let's actually sit with the clip from the hook for a second, because it's the reason you clicked on this video in the first place. The footage, which people online have started calling the Paris video, surfaced in the first few days of July 2026. It's short. It's a little shaky, the way most candid viral clips tend to be. And it shows Lisa walking, seemingly caught off guard by whoever was filming, before she raises a hand and briefly covers the lower half of her face. That's it. That's the entire clip. A few seconds, no audio commentary, no context provided by whoever filmed it. But here's the thing about the internet. Context gets attached to a clip fast, whether that context is accurate or not. Within hours, the video was being reposted with quote commentary, stitched into reaction videos, and screenshotted into meme formats. Almost all of it was built around one specific interpretation, that Lisa was self-conscious about her nose, and that this was her instinctively hiding it the moment she noticed a camera. Now, to be clear about something important, right up front, nobody actually knows why she made that gesture in that specific moment. People cover their faces on camera for all kinds of reasons that have nothing to do with insecurity, sun glare, a sudden cough, or simply not wanting to be photographed at all in an unplanned moment, which is an extremely normal reaction for anyone, famous or not. There is no confirmed explanation for the gesture. None. But online, the theory that spread wasn't the boring, mundane one. It was the dramatic one. And it stuck, hard. because of everything that had already happened in the weeks leading up to it. Which brings us to where this story actually begins. Part 3, the backstory, the FIFA World Cup appearance. Rewind to mid-June 2026. Lisa performed at the opening ceremony of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, held in the United States, one of the single biggest global broadcast stages that exists on Earth. Hundreds of millions of people, in dozens of countries, all watching the same event at roughly the same time. And almost immediately after that performance ended, a very specific kind of comment started showing up in the replies and comment sections. That Lisa's nose looked different. Higher bridge, some said. Straighter. Sharper than in photos from just a year or two earlier. Here's a question worth actually sitting with for a second. How often, in your day-to-day life, do you scrutinize a single photo of someone from 3 different angles, at 3 different points in their life, under 3 completely different lighting setups? Probably never. Most of us have never had our own face analyzed that closely, not even once. But that's exactly what started happening here, at scale, with what looked like millions of people doing it within the same 48 hours. Side-by-side comparison images began circulating almost immediately. Older red carpet photos placed next to World Cup broadcast stills, sometimes with arrows and circles drawn around her nose and profile to highlight the supposed difference. This kind of content, the then versus now comparison post, is a genre that exists constantly online for basically every famous person alive. But for Lisa, in this particular moment, it hit differently. It hit its scale, and it hit fast. It's also worth understanding that this isn't happening in isolation. K-pop as an industry has dealt with intense conversations around appearance and cosmetic procedures for years. It's a well-documented part of the culture around the genre generally, discussed openly by fans, journalists, and sometimes idols themselves. That broader context doesn't confirm anything specific about Lisa, but it does help explain why a rumor like this one found such fertile ground so quickly. The audience was, in a sense, already primed to ask the question the moment a photo looked even slightly different. And once that theory was out in the world, it didn't fade the way most single-week internet chatter usually does. If anything, the very next event only added more fuel to it. Part 4. Escalation, the Shiseido event, and the resurfaced video. On July 3, 2026, Lisa appeared at a public event in Thailand, a ribbon cutting for Shiseido's Ultimune skincare line, where she serves as a global brand ambassador. She was photographed there alongside Indian actress Tamana Bhatia, in what was, on paper, a completely routine celebrity brand appearance. The kind of event that normally generates a handful of entertainment news write-ups, and not much else. Except this one wasn't treated as routine at all. Within hours, new side-by-side comparisons were circulating. This time built from photos taken at the Shiseido event itself, laid next to older images from years prior. And the new nose theory, which had already been simmering since the World Cup performance, boiled over into a much bigger conversation. Here's where things escalated even further. An older video, one that had actually circulated before, months or possibly longer earlier, got pulled back out of the archive and recirculated alongside the new comparison photos. The video featured a cosmetic surgeon speculating, without any direct access to Lisa or any confirmed medical information, about what procedures she might theoretically have had, and roughly what something like that might cost. It's worth pausing here and being really precise about what that video actually is, because this is exactly the kind of thing that gets misrepresented online. It is speculation. It came from someone with no direct knowledge of Lisa's medical history, her records, or any statement from her team. It was never confirmed by Lisa. It was never confirmed by anyone with actual information. And yet, once it got attached to a fresh news cycle, plenty of people online started treating it less like a guess and more like an explanation. And that's the point where the online conversation really split into 2 camps. On one side, people treated the comparison photos as close to proof of something, sharing them, zooming in, and debating individual features pixel by pixel. On the other side, a large and genuinely vocal wave of fans pushed back hard, calling the entire cycle invasive and unfair to begin with. Their argument, broadly, went something like this. Lighting, camera angle, makeup technique, weight changes, and even just the natural process of getting a few years older can all change how a face reads in a photo. Treating any of that as hard evidence of a medical procedure is a level of scrutiny most people would never, ever want turned on themselves. Have you ever had one unflattering photo of yourself circulate in a group chat and felt weird about it for the rest of the day? Now try to imagine that same feeling, except the group chat is the entire internet in multiple languages for weeks at a time. That pushback became its own significant part of the story, not just a footnote to it. Conversations about body shaming, about the invasion of a public figure's privacy, and about the specific pressure placed on women in entertainment to look a certain way consistently, forever, without ever visibly aging or changing. All of that became just as much a part of this discourse as the original speculation was. There's also a less obvious reason this cycle grew as fast as it did, and it has less to do with Lisa and more to do with how social platforms work in general. Comparison posts, gotcha screenshots, and debate bait content tend to perform extremely well algorithmically. They generate replies, quote posts, and arguments in the comments. That engagement tells the platform to show the content to even more people. Nobody needs a secret conspiracy to explain why this spread so fast. A divisive claim about a famous face is, unfortunately, close to perfect fuel for how these platforms are built to distribute content in the first place. So by the time that video of her covering her face in Paris surfaced on July 4th and 5th, it didn't land in a vacuum. It landed directly in the middle of an already heated, already divided conversation that had been building for weeks. That's a big part of why a few seconds of ambiguous footage exploded the way it did. Now, here's the detail about all of this that almost nobody is actually talking about, and it's not about her face at all. It's about timing. This entire controversy, the World Cup comparisons, the Shiseido photos, the resurfaced speculation video, the Paris clip, all of it is unfolding during what might genuinely be the busiest, highest-stakes stretch of Lisa's entire career so far. She reportedly has new music expected before the end of the year. She's attached to a Netflix romantic comedy said to be inspired by Notting Hill. She's also set to star in a Netflix action film called Taigo, described as a spin-off connected to the Extraction franchise. A documentary about her is reportedly in development as well. And in November 2026, she's scheduled to open a Las Vegas residency called Viva Lalisa, with shows at Caesars Palace's Coliseum on November 13th, 14th, 2007, and 28th. Think about that lineup for a second. This isn't a quiet year where a rumor is the only headline attached to her name. This is arguably the single most visible, most heavily covered period of her entire career. Film premieres, a Vegas residency announcement, a documentary, and new music, all stacked into the exact same handful of months as a viral rumor about her face. Which raises a genuinely interesting question, and it's the one I want you to actually sit with. Is the intensity of this particular scrutiny actually about her nose at all? Or is a chunk of it simply a byproduct of how much attention is already pointed at her right now, for reasons that have nothing to do with plastic surgery whatsoever? The more visible someone becomes, the more surface area there is for any single photo, any single gesture, to get picked apart. That doesn't answer the original question, but it does reframe why this particular rumor, at this particular moment, hit as hard as it did. Either way, the internet doesn't pause for good timing. And as of this video, this discourse still isn't slowing down. Part 5. Where things stand now. So let's separate what we actually know from what's still just speculation, because at this point, online, those two things have gotten pretty tangled together. Confirmed, Lisa performed at the 2026 FIFA World Cup opening ceremony in mid-June, and comparison photos afterward sparked online speculation about her appearance. Confirmed, she attended the Shiseido Ultimune event in Thailand on July 3rd as a global ambassador, alongside actress Tamana Bhatia, and more comparison photos followed that appearance. Confirmed, a video showing her covering her face while walking began circulating widely starting July 4th and 5th, and was widely interpreted online as a reaction to the ongoing criticism. Not confirmed whether Lisa has had any cosmetic procedure at all. Not confirmed what, if anything, the hand-to-face gesture in the Paris video actually meant in that moment. And not confirmed any of the specific claims made in that resurfaced cosmetic surgeon commentary video, since it was speculation from someone without direct access to her, not a statement from Lisa, her medical team, or her representatives. And that last point is really the one that matters most. As of this video, neither Lisa nor her representatives have made any public statement confirming or denying a cosmetic procedure. No interview addressing it directly, no official post, nothing on the record from her side at all. Everything currently driving this story is coming from outside observers, fans, critics, and commentary channels like this one, not from Lisa herself. That silence gets read very differently depending on who you ask. Some people take it as suspicious, or as an admission by omission. Others point out, pretty reasonably, that celebrities aren't actually obligated to explain their own faces to millions of strangers on the internet, and that the expectation of a statement in the first place might itself be part of what's wrong with this whole cycle. A person's medical decisions, cosmetic or otherwise, are generally considered private for a reason. Both of those reactions, suspicion and defense, are sitting side by side online right now, and neither one is the confirmed answer because there isn't one yet. None of this is entirely new territory either. Public figures, actors, musicians, athletes regularly go through cycles like this one, where a single photo or a single clip becomes proof of something that's never actually confirmed one way or the other. Sometimes those rumors eventually get addressed directly. Often, they simply fade out over time, unresolved, replaced by the next news cycle. There's no way to know yet which path this particular story takes. But it's a useful reminder that everyone online seems certain and, this is confirmed, are two very different things. And it's worth keeping that distinction in mind the next time a comparison photo post shows up on your own feed about Lisa or anyone else. So let's go back to exactly where we started, a few seconds of video, a hand raised to a face, and a caption that turned an ordinary moment into a headline. Maybe that gesture meant exactly what people assumed it did. Or maybe it meant nothing at all. A cough, a bright patch of sun, an unplanned photo caught at an unflattering angle. Something that happens to ordinary people every single day and just doesn't get filmed and shared with the world. We genuinely don't know. What we do know is that it happened at the exact moment the internet was already primed to read it a certain way, in the middle of the busiest, most high-profile stretch of one performer's entire career. So here's what I'll actually leave you with. Where do you draw the line between fair public curiosity about a celebrity's changing appearance over time and scrutiny that's crossed into something more invasive? Is this just ordinary internet noise around a very famous, very visible person? Or does it point to something bigger about how we collectively treat public figures, especially women, the moment their face looks even slightly different in a photo? Let me know where you land on that in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how people are thinking about this one.